You don't need 1,000 tools to be a great DM. In this episode, we're going to talk about essential tools and traps to it. By the end of this episode, you'll have a dramatically reduced intimidation with all the tools that are out there because you'll know exactly what you need, what should help, and what may not at all. Welcome to StoryForge DM, where I help you become the best DM you can possibly become. Let's start out with the 4 basic rules that you're gonna need with every session. Number 1, dice. Number 2, rules. Number 3, notes. And lastly, and most importantly, imagination. Because without imagination, there's no point in having anything else. When we're talking about dice, there's some things that you can do as a DM to get yourself properly prepared. A good idea is to sequester your dice in the batches that you might need. So maybe have a couple D6s set aside, 6-sided dice, a D20 or 2 set aside, and personally, I like to have multicolored ones. So maybe I'd have one for a primary attack and say 2 separate white ones for a secondary attack and maybe a red one for a tertiary attack. This way, it'll make my rolling easier, a little bit faster, and I'm not digging around looking for dice. When I talk about needing the basic rules, I mean just that. We don't need all the advanced rules, and everybody at the table can help with those advanced rules. But a basic understanding of the rules is definitely important. Take a second and read through the player's handbook. After you've done session 0, look at the player characters and see what they can do, and take a moment to read through the Dungeon Master's Guide. You don't have to read cover to cover, but some of the important things you might want to note are how poisons and diseases work, what different conditions might come up, and how they affect your PCs. And of course, XP. Experience points, getting further in the game, is one of the reasons that everybody's at the table. One of the reasons that everybody plays, and it's realistically how you're going to forward the story. I want to cover 4 helpful but optional tools: maps, minis, music, and apps. Maps are optional and minis are optional because, quite frankly, before 3rd edition or even late 2nd edition, there were no minis. This was a game of pen and paper that was done in our imaginations rather than having minis and tools on the table. Now, I'll be the first to admit I love my minis, if you can't tell behind me. This is not the only thing. Each PC might want to get their own mini as well. It's good to give your players the opportunity to get minis so that they can see what their character is going to look like on the table. Companies like HeroForge, for instance, allow you to customize characters that can be printed or even shipped to you. Maps make it really easy to see where your characters are and where the monsters are in space and time. They give the ability for everybody to be on the same page and understand where everything is. Apps can be helpful, especially and obviously when you're playing online. When you're playing in person, however, using apps may be in the form of dice rollers, or maybe automatic calculators, or possibly even Excel spreadsheets that help do some of the math. These are things that are definitely helpful, but definitely optional. And music. Although music is optional, I will say, out of everything, it really helps the imagination. If you want to find some cool playlists to check out, check Spotify, Apple, you name it. You can type in D&D music or adventure music or the like, and you'll find a plethora of playlists that people have created specifically to be used at the D&D table. There's a big trap waiting for you with tools, however. You don't want to get so many tools that you get overloaded and then stop prepping or fail to prep properly. A lot of the time, people buy confidence. They buy the tools that they think are going to give them confidence. But in reality, you can make these tools. Not all of them, but some of them. Back to the idea of cue cards or annotated cards or handouts or printed drawings. These are all things that you can actually make. And I guarantee some of my fellow YouTubers have some ideas out there that you can use. Over-prepping can lead to prep paralysis, where you're frozen because you have so many different things prepared that you're really not ready to move on the fly. And as I always say, D&D is a game of improv, and as the DM, you need to be flexible and fluid. You need to be able to improv, and of course, in doing so, you don't want to have so many tools that you forget where you are or what you're doing. Some of the tools that I've tried that don't necessarily work include map tiles or 3D printed tiles, because I just don't have the time, neither does anybody at my table, to set these up and do all the necessary prep work in order to get it to look that cool. Now at my table, we have a TV embedded in the table and are able to link to laptops to have the maps on the board. But at your table or online, there's plenty of different things you can do. If you want to have maps, take the fold-out ones. They're easy to use and really easy to adapt. If you have the time and effort, feel free to dig into map tiles. Feel free to use 3D printed tiles. All of these things are guaranteed to enhance your game. You just have to make sure you have the time to commit to be able to upkeep that level of prep from week to week. D&D is all about building skill, not necessarily building inventory. Listening, adapting, and reading the table as the DM are some of the biggest skills that you're gonna need if you're gonna be successful. Reading the table is all about looking around and seeing what people are saying, seeing how people are communicating, especially when you have a second to prep. While you're doing that, and while they're talking, you have the opportunity to kind of listen in and pick up some of the ideas that you might want to use or put pressure on or actuate to get the story to go further along. As you're moving and improving, you're adapting. So when someone switches gears and goes to shift, you want to be ready for it. If you have all these different tools that you went out and purchased in order to forward your game, you might run into a trap where you get into prep paralysis. You kind of look and you go, oh, I don't know which one I want to use. Listening, of course, that comes with the territory. If you're going to DM properly, you better listen. You got to hear your players and hear what they're saying. Take a minute and pause people. If one PC is talking to you and they're going on and on, feel free to just go, okay, let's hold that thought. I'm going to move on to somebody else and just hear what they have to say as well. It goes back to giving everybody a minute in the spotlight and a second with the microphone. As a DM, you may want to consider bringing some extra pencils, pens, paper, you name it, for your PCs. It always is terrible when someone forgets. But as a new DM, if you can afford them that'll get you in the good books at least. Some of my favorite tools to use are simple. Pen and paper, a journal, some good cue cards, of course a DM screen, and I go back to the most important, listening skills. If you can master these, you're gonna have some happy PCs at the table. Of course, it's always good when someone brings in something useful that everybody can use. For instance, maybe some condition cards or the like that might help speed the game along. But it's not your job to have all the tools, to account for all the tools, and to prep with all the tools. Again, that's just something that could lead into preparation paralysis. As always, a great DM isn't born, it's forged. Subscribe and tune in a couple weeks where we find that balance between rule setting and storytelling. Drop a comment with some of the tools you like to use and why. I'd love to hear about them and see what we can do to collaborate. Thanks for checking in.